two, three, four.
Aloha, everybody, and welcome to the Jason Jones Show. I am your host, Jason Jones, broadcasting from the beautiful hill country of Texas. Now, most of you, the vast majority of you are listening to this, but you need to know this is now our second video podcast, and you can go into the show notes and you can see where you can watch it online at YouTube, Rumble, yada, yada, yada. But today I am going to do a bit of a cold open. Is that what they call it, Anthony?
Cold open, yeah, that's great.
I think a bit of a cold open because, first of all, you need to know this episode is being brought to you by the Vulnerable People Project, inspired by the life of St. Maximilian Kolbe to live a life in solidarity with the most vulnerable people in the world and the most vulnerable places and times. And today, and you can support our work by going to vulnerablepeopleproject.com. But we're not supposed to be doing a show today. We're in the middle of moving offices, and then I'm going to be on the road basically from tomorrow until Thanksgiving. Yeah, but we had an opportunity we did not want to miss. There is a beautiful new film, Triumph of the Heart, on the life of one of the most beautiful Christian men in the 2,000 year history of the mystical body of Christ. And we have the writer and director and producer. That's a lot of work for one guy.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Anthony, welcome to the Jason Jones Show.
Hey, it's a total honor to be here. You know, I when I was coming out of college, sort of with that vim and vigor, I wanted to get into the pro-life movement, and your name was, of course, like one of the names that was like, you know, thrown around. You were one of the, I don't know, sort of like leaders in the movement, and so I kind of followed you pretty closely at that time, and all there's been lots of bobbing and weaving in my career. I ended up making a movie about a patron of yours, St. Maximilian Kolbe. So it's kind of cool to end up being in the room with you here.
Well, Anthony, I don't know if you even know, you and I have been on listservs together, chat groups, Facebook groups, a lot of things. I actually pay attention, but as you as a filmmaker know, we're always kind of in our own wars.
Right.
And so I'm paying attention. I'm looking at you. I've been hearing about you for a very long time, and I've watched you chase after your goals relentlessly. And to make a film is one of the most challenging things in the world. And to survive in the film industry is extremely difficult. And sometimes I have to say, like, film has always been ancillary to what I do. I really love film, but the heart of what I do is the Vulnerable People Project, and Movie to Movement serves our mission at VPP, which is to defend the vulnerable from violence. But I've watched your career. I've watched you pursue projects. I've watched you be a part of the Catholic film community and try to knit people together consistently over the years. So you don't know this, but I've really always paid attention to you. I've always really admired you. And one of my favorite interviews of all time was the great theologian, Dave Chappelle. You may have heard of him.
Yeah.
One of the great theologians, Dave Chappelle. I mean, he does have some heresy.
I was like, who are you going to say right now? The way you teed it up, it was like,
Is
okay,
Dave
this guy's going to be out of left.
No, but Dave Chappelle, the comedian, I've had the privilege to meet several times and actually spend some time with him during COVID at his house, which was amazing, and his friends. But inside the actor's studio, you know, he shared with his father that he wanted to be a stand-up comedian. And his dad said, I do not support your dream because you will not succeed. And Dave said, well, Dad, how much do you make as a teacher? And his dad said, like, this is the early 90s or late 80s. He's, you know, I make $33,000 a year. He said, Dad, well, if I can make $33,000 a year by the time I'm your age, standing on stage, making people laugh, I will look back at my life and say that I was a success. And his dad said, well, if you have that attitude, son, you have my support, you go for it. And, you know, I think a lot of people, when they start, they have this vim and vigor. And we dream of, you know, big sets and studios and red carpet premieres. But then you really have to earn it. I
Yeah.
always say it's like
Right.
those old kung fu movies where you gotta sit outside the Shaolin Temple for a long time
My gosh, yeah.
before they let you in. And brother, so you have earned it, and now you've made this amazing film, Triumph of the Heart. And maybe we could just begin kind of like at your hero's journey.
Mm.
Talk about that. Like, you've been working, this is not something that was easy to do. Can you tell us what were all of the steps that got you to the place to make this movie?
Well, I think that's a really great I love framing it in terms of the hero's journey, and it certainly feels like that for me in ways that really align with the story itself of the movie and of Saint Maximilian Kolbe and the men that he ministered to. I think that um, I came out of seminary. I was a grew up in the Catholic homeschool world and was ready to be a culture warrior in a lot of ways. I wanted to go into the pro life movement, be sort of involved in. My dream was to sort of do politically, I guess, motivated ads and marketing campaigns and um, I think that one of the things that I was really excited about was really sharing the gospel. Like I wanted to bring people to the Lord, and to do so in some way that would affect kind of people's ability to choose life, and to be kind of moved, the dial moved on like end of life issues. But I went into youth ministry as one does after college, as I was trying to figure out what would come next.
And you
In the
know what?
midst,
I was director of Rock for Life. I don't know if you know that. After
yeah,
Brian
I know.
Hemsworth
I know.
was
I
director.
was, I will tell you, when I was in high school, I went to Rock for Life. I had like a t-shirt that had, I basically made my own. Like I stenciled George Bush's face on my t-shirt with like spray paint and wrote Rock for Life on it and like went to concerts.
That's
So
amazing.
yeah, I'm one of those early fans, street teams for you. But anyway, I came out of that and I face planted directly into a sort of a crisis. My health deteriorated for like no reason. Nobody could figure it out. I could only sleep for like 2 hours a night. Lots of other sort of strange symptoms like tinnitus and like mental brain fuzz, inability to fully like form sentences.
Were
Sometimes it
you a
was like
drummer?
this.
Were you in a band? Anything like this? No.
No, no, it was actually found out almost a decade later there was a mold infection, that I had some sort of systemic kind of issue that my immune system wasn't dealing with kind of a natural fungus that's in everybody's guts, but
You
that is
know
kept
who
in
you need to
balance.
get on her show? I'm gonna tell her about you, is Shemaine Nugent, Ted
Mm,
Nugent's wife. Almost killed,
wow.
one of the
Yeah.
healthiest humans you've ever met in your life, and Shemaine as well was almost killed by a mold in her house.
Yeah, it's one of these things that I think is becoming more people are becoming more aware of it. And yeah, for me, it wasn't some sort of external like cause. That it was a natural fungus that's in most people's bodies, but that my immune system didn't wasn't dealing with my gut wasn't dealing with it properly, and so it was spreading throughout my body and kind of created little like colonies kind of all over the place. And so if you could think about like what a somebody is on a shroom trip, it was kind of like that, like being on a bad trip just all the
Wow.
time. Um, and so it gave me this ability to sort of stare hell in the face in a way, like, sleep deprivation plus this sort of, hallucinative like effect to all of like my serotonin receptors. And so in the midst of that, I needed to find some reason to live. Frankly, every day was just like a decision, is my life worth living today? And I had to really ask that question in a way I'd never had to ask before because, day in, day out, there was no answer, there was no solution, and I had no sense that if that would ever come. And so I went through the process. I lost my faith. I was sort of a professed atheist for a while, living with kind of this nihilistic worldview. And ultimately, I discovered while I was doing a freelance writing project, I discovered St. Maximilian Kolbe's story, but particularly certain parts of it that I had never heard before that had to do with like the end of his life, where in many ways, like the story that's popularly shared stops. So people who don't know, St. Maximilian Kolbe was a priest in Auschwitz in Poland. He had been a big media guy, had one of the largest syndicated newspapers and radio stations in Poland, um, was deemed to be a not friendly to the Nazi party for many reasons. was taken to Auschwitz during the early stages of Poland, or sorry, early stages of Auschwitz when they were trying to subjugate the Polish people by killing off their intelligentsia. So you have POWs, political people, wealthy people, anybody that sort of is a leader in culture that could be trouble, is taken there and dehumanized and exterminated. Kolbe steps out of line during a lineup when they're picking 10 men at random to die in a starvation bunker as punishment for somebody who escaped. Volunteers, he takes a man's place, saves one man's life, and then enters into the starvation bunker with 9 other men. For many people, that's where the story ends. But for me, when I learned that not only did he stay alive for 14 days without food or water, but that and that he was executed by the Germans because he was singing songs and praying hymns, and of course these things are not really great when you're trying to extinguish the soul of a culture. To have a
Is
prisoner
it,
doing that,
not to interrupt you, is it true? Like,
yeah,
so from my memory, my recollection is he was the only Gentile in the group initially, and so he led them in the Psalms, and he
hmm
was the last one alive, and then he switched to the Rosary and the Hail Marys. I don't know if you found that in your research, but I thought that was so beautiful of Saint Maximilian Kolbe to bring his cohorts in together with him in prayer, and then um still he didn't die, right? They had to inject him with carbolic acid
right,
twice, I
yeah.
think.
So, one of the things that was really interesting to me was that he was not like I thought. This is a sort of common urban legend that he was the last one. Well, he was the last one killed, but he wasn't killed alone. In that he was executed with 3 other men
Oh,
who
okay.
actually stayed alive with him that whole time. And we actually don't know the composition of the people inside of the cell. And so there's kind of different interpretations of who they were, but we do know who was inside of the camp and who was in his kind of prisoner block. And what we know about that is that there were Jews, yes, but this was particularly during a moment when people were there because they were trouble for Poland in general. So, of course, you have Jews who were there who were leaders in media, who were people that had politically influential roles. You had people who were POWs. You had people who were just sort of members of the past government that could potentially wield power. And so that confluence of diversity probably was in his cell with him. And so yes, he would have he would have been friendly to and embracing to the other people, the Jews that were in that cell with him. And he also led Polish Catholic
Because
hymns as
this
well.
was, I just looked it up to double
Mhm.
check. He was executed actually 6 months before the Wannsee Conference. So this was before the extermination order.
Right,
So
exactly.
these were concentration camps, not death camps at this point.
Right. And they were made for, I mean, the original idea here was that it would dehumanize and demoralize the Polish people. Like, you don't create a camp like this just to exterminate. It's too demonically, like, you know, uh, dark for that. It's really to completely demoralize and subjugate the people of Poland so that they could be conquered and kind of pulled into the Reich, if you will. If they could take all the leadership and make them in some way less than human, then it would be sort of a proof that that the Polish people are sort of a secondary race that should be subservient to the Germans. So this was part of the strategy and the idea of the camps in their inception. Of course, they became later repurposed for the Holocaust, but at this time, Kolbe was sort of standing up for the people of Poland, and the battle between Kolbe and the commandant through the window of the cell, if you will, was really about can the soul of Polish identity, which of course was also very Christian, can that be crushed? And Colby's answer was no, and he sort of made that answer and paid for it with his life. But it echoed and reverberated throughout Polish culture, even during that year immediately um, afterwards. And so he's sort of a vision of like Polish resistance as much as he is like a saint. But
And I want to go
yeah.
back because I think
Mhm.
I interrupted you. We went off course. So it was when you discovered when the myth ends, or the myth, it's a true myth, it's a true, beautiful, heroic story. When the story as it's told usually ends with him going into the starvation bunker. You kind of did a deep dive on this as you're battling these health illnesses.
Right. Yeah. And so when I discovered this detail, it really haunted me. I would wake up every night with like nightmares and a panic attack. And immediately I started to begin to imagine what it would have been like to be inside of that cell with Colby, with a saint. And even though I didn't really believe in God or believe in really anything at the time, there was something about his witness of love that helped to sort of restore my belief in humanity, in belief in love, and then ultimately my hope in a higher power began to be like restored as I meditated on the story. And so, as a creative and as a writer, I began to write on it, and kept that sort of close as a sort of treasured companion. And my health started to sort of come back a little bit, at least to where I could function. And I
And
ended up.
what years is this? What
So
year
this
is
was
this?
2013 was when I was like beginning to meditate on the story and kind of having my restoration. And then 2014, I started an agency with my twin brother to do creative work. It was one of the things that I could do while I was kind
And
of.
you started like a
Yeah,
community, like a Facebook group for all of us creatives around the same time.
right,
So you
exactly.
weren't Catholic at this time.
I was dipping my toe back in, but not being totally honest that I was not fully on board with a
Were you
lot of it yet.
angry? So you leave the church. It seems like you weren't angry. You were just like, oh,
Well,
that
that
was
that
true.
was part of it. So 2013, I was beginning to find healing through the meditation on this story. 2014, I started the agency, and I think the Facebook group came at the end of that year.
Okay.
And by that
You
point,
shocked
like,
I remember that? I never contributed. It
yeah, that's
was me.
amazing that you were watching that.
Oh,
Yeah.
I was always watching. I didn't have any, I didn't have anything to say to add value. And I didn't want to give people false hope because my company was tanking, tanking. And everyone's like, help. I'm like, I'm drowning too, my
Yeah,
brother.
yeah, 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 yeah. I
So,
get it.
well, did your brother lose his faith at this time?
No, 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 no. We were both at that point. I was like, I believed in God again, and I was going to mass, but I didn't know if I fully like believed um, in the church. And that actually took a couple more years of being sort of this weird public figure in the Catholic space, but being kind of having this secret imposter syndrome. Like if people really knew what I thought, then they would like give me an excommunication or something. But
I'm
Contin
afraid if any priest or bishop listens to my podcast, I'll be
Oh
excommunicated.
my gosh, yeah, I mean, it
But
turns out that the Catholic Church is a much bigger boat than any of us perhaps thought in the beginning.
they
Um,
forgive us much
so
more than we forgive ourselves.
exactly. Yeah, there's just a lot more, mercy than I think perhaps we might have given ourselves or thought that we would be deserving of. And certainly that was the case for me. And so I ended up kind of having this leadership role that I didn't expect. When I started this group, it was really just because I realized that like I was doing work with Catholic clients. I wanted to connect with other people who are creatives and um, I think a lot of times in the church, like everybody around us is like bankers, they're like insurance. You just like look at it's a very like rigid, conservative culture. So I wanted to know where all the wacky kind of wiggly people out there that are doing the creative stuff. There needs to be a space for us to sort of talk. And I started this Facebook group that sort of blew up and became a international Catholic brand that I didn't expect to happen, and then just sort of was thrust into sort of a limelight of leadership. And I did a lot of short films in collaboration with other people that was a part of kind of the prerequisite for getting to the point where I could actually make a movie. But I think ultimately it was being hired by the Diocese of Dallas to do a proof of concept of this film about St. Maximilian Kolbe. They wanted an outreach to people who were unchurched in the Diocese of Dallas, and they asked me to. They basically commissioned like some sort of short film that would tell the story of a saint that would give a window into the topics of grief, doubt, and darkness. And I was like, "Have I got the idea for you? Like we should do
Well, I
something."
apologize for being a
Yeah,
little bit out of the loop. I've been a really kind of, again, I'm always all consumed in my
yeah,
projects. So
yeah,
I
yeah.
didn't know this. The Diocese of Dallas is an investor in this film.
They were an investor in the proof of concept of the film before this was even really the feature length was not on the table. It was just like, hey, we want something for the Dice of Dallas to show at like the Granada Theater and some outreach to the culture in general. And they brought our team in to help kind of with the creative, the branding, and then they were like, hey, you guys do short films. Would you be interested in doing something specifically about a saint that would open up the discussion here? And I pitched them the story of St. Maximilian Kolbe, 12 Angry Men style, focused on the last days of his life. They gave us, I think, like 10 grand or something like that. We went and shot it in a barn, but the idea of it just had this amazing, like, gravitas. And when we showed it there, we had this like explosion of I don't know if you've ever been in a room where you just feel like people are like so rocked by God that they don't know what to say. Kind of felt like that. So after that, I just knew like, oh my gosh, I've got to do something with this, and started working on the feature length script, especially during the pandemic. My health deteriorated again. It went through ups and downs. So there was another sort of like big dip where I couldn't sleep and was in that kind of place of suffering. And so I used the story and writing the script to really help me get through that. And ultimately presented it to people with the short film in Dallas, and a bunch of mom and pop kind of people got involved and put 10K down. We raised about 500 grand and went out in Poland and shot the movie. So
So you shot a
um,
feature film for 500 grand.
feature film in Poland we shot it for 300 grand and then spent the rest of that on post production. But yeah,
That's really unbelievable. You know, our short film Crescendo was like $700,000.
yeah,
And,
no,
that's why when I've looked at the product, I always get nervous. And
mhm,
full disclosure, folks, I haven't seen the film yet, but I saw the trailer and I was nervous. I was like, oh no, I
mhm,
bet they didn't have a good budget. And I'm never a harsh critic because I know quality is often a function. It is a function of the budget. You can only,
yeah,
you got the ingredients you have. And
right,
then the trailer's breathtaking.
yeah,
And
yeah.
it looks like this is a big budget film. And so it's quite, I'm really so excited to see the feature film.
Yeah, it is a miracle. I mean, I will never, ever, ever try to do a movie like this for 500 grand. Like again, it required like a level of investment from everybody involved that none of us had we had no idea. It was basically like press pause on everything else in your life for 3 years. You're not going to have a life. You're going to be, it's been like finals week every week since we got our initial investment. We flew to Poland. We had 3 months to come back with a feature length movie. We didn't know anybody out there. We didn't know the language, and we're bopping around from like hostel to hostel trying to sort of like eke the most out of like having no money. So we had enough we didn't even have enough money to pay for dinner for everybody. We had broth. All the actors were on starvation diets because we're sort of making a movie about Auschwitz. So we're just like, we're going to fast at night, Um, and
So this
so
was not a SAG-AFTRA
this
production.
was not a SAG-AFTRA production. This was
Teamsters were
just
not involved in the
yeah.
production.
Oh my gosh. We had to get away to Poland so that they wouldn't have their, you know, like
Like,
causing it. But no, it's a gift. Really, everybody that got involved did it purely out of a desire to tell the story and, um, put aside money, fame, accolades, comfort in order to tell it. And it's been kind of an all in effort, David and Goliath effort for the last like 3-4 years as we've been trying to take it across the finish line. So,
well, Anthony, this is something you're going to find out when I haven't worked on huge budget films, but I've worked on big budget short films. That's one of the reasons I love short films, because we can really kind of make what we want to make.
mhm,
Um, but I've worked on films from 1 million feature films to 30 million.
mhm.
And as hard as it is to make that 500, you're always stretching,
It's always hard.
stretching,
Yeah.
always hard. Yeah. And like you said, 3 years, I don't know if you have like memory loss, but on projects I've worked on, I don't remember that year. I don't remember birthday parties for my children. I don't remember bar mitzvahs. I don't remember anything I went to. I don't remember. People are like, remember we went to the U2 concert? I do not. When was that? Oh, that's when we were shooting that movie. I was
Yeah.
probably thinking about work the whole time I was in the concert.
It's the
And
cross of this, that's just like
yeah,
what it
people don't
is.
know.
Yeah.
So folks, when you come up to a filmmaker and say, I have a movie idea for you, what you're telling them I get mad. I get mad. Like, "Hey, you don't think I have ideas? I got ideas." It's like, "Wait, you wanna tell me what to do for the next 10 years of my life? Like, are
Right.
you
Yeah. Yeah.
serious?"
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's
If I've had this, I had all of these ideas before I made this movie of like what I wanted to do next. And people always are asking me that. In some ways, I'm like, you don't go up to a marathon runner in the last 2 miles of his race and ask him like what do you think you're gonna do for their next race? You realize how much it's taken out of the person, you see it on their face. But yeah, I
about
think
60% of producers are first and last time producers
yeah, that's a real thing.
because they're like, "That was fun, and I will
Yeah,
never
never
do
do
that
that
again."
again. Yeah. But,
Yeah.
I think for me, I just realized, like, now the litmus test for, like, do I give myself to a movie is, like, do I wanna spend the next, whatever, 5, 6 years of my
Do
life
you,
totally devoted to
Anthony
that?
D'Ambrosio,
Yeah.
take this film to cost
Exactly.
you what it marks for the next 10 years of your life?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And this one has been, I mean, it's life-saving for me, so it's totally worth it. But I think the process of working on it has shaped me, and I have to realize that like when I say yes to the next project, it's going to be like living inside of that person's charism and meditating on that and letting that story be my story, the story of my own soul for years. And so I feel like in some ways I just got to be on retreat. Like it was a super intense retreat, but man, I was in this world of Kolbe and his persona, meditating on that for, you know, uh, at least for now, I think it's about 7 years. So
And
it's
that's
really
normal.
changed me.
That's the normal lifespan of a from concept from completed script to the screen is usually 7 years.
Yeah, I had no idea. I have some director friends that do like Hallmark movies and Lifetime movies, and they
Well,
just,
that's different.
spit them out, turn them around in like a
Yeah,
year. And that was what
that's
I
a
had in my
different
brain.
story. Hey, Anthony, I wanna give you, like, unsolicited advice, like, I wish I'd have learned this younger. You should always have your next film ready to go when you're about to go into release, and here's why, especially when you're a tribal creature like we are. People are gonna come up to you, they're gonna be so excited and say, "What's your next project I'd like to invest?" And you're thinking, "Okay, I'll remember this person." And in 3 years, when you call them, they're like, "Who are you again?"
Right. Yeah,
And
exactly. Yeah.
and I have always told my partners, and not that we've ever done I always give advice that I've never been able to do myself, but it's like, I always tell my partners, we really need the next time we're in distribution, we need to know when people come up to us, we need to have like, "Here you go. Here's the proposal. Here's the deal memo." And, I don't think we've ever pulled it off. But
Yeah.
you're right, because after this film, people are really gonna wanna partner with you on what you have next.
Yeah. Yeah. It's actually going to be, I think, kind of hard to discern, like who to work with, what to do. I'm by nature this very sort of independent, like kind of person, a very entrepreneurial and a little bit like, I don't know how to describe it, but just I don't do things the normal way. Never, ever, ever. And try to maintain like a certain like directive of my own kind of spirit and soul. And so, yeah, in order to get into the next level of filmmaking, though, you have to have way bigger partners. If I want to do a movie about the Crusades or a proper Robin Hood or King Arthur or some of these other things that I've dreamed of and started like gnawing on, but these are like 10, 15, $20 million movies. You don't raise that at 5 grand a pop, like, um, at least unless, yeah,
Look at there's 2 people to look at. Look at Alejandro Monteverdi, who I worked with on Bella and Little Boy and Crescendo, and then he had the billion-dollar hit Sound of Freedom. And then you have, someone I adore is Taika Waititi. And
yeah, I love
I
him.
loved Taika when he was just, I liked him because living most of my life in Hawaii, here's this great Polynesian, this Maori, um, he's half Jewish, half Maori, which is why he's so sweet and so funny, like, he's the best. And, I remember just making films like Boy and Hunt for the Wilder People,
Yeah,
and
right.
now he's like the biggest thing in the world, you know?
Yeah, right.
And,
Yeah,
you can make those jumps pretty quick,
yeah.
I think. Well, I mean, it doesn't feel like it's quick.
But yeah, no, it does not. But I mean,
10
there are these
years
sort of
doesn't seem
threshold
fast,
moments.
but it's fast.
Yeah, you have these sort of like watershed threshold moments where it's like slow, so slow, so slow, and then boom, something hits and it's, big. I think leading up to this release, even a month ago, there was no buzz. I had no press. Like nobody was asking me for interviews. Like we were reaching out to people, just like everything was dying, just in the email inbox. And then we did this crowdfunding campaign where we kind of let the little people carry us and put us on their shoulders and raise money for their own
Well,
like
hey, we're buying a
parasites.
theater. I just bought out a whole theater for my town.
Yeah.
I don't know that. We bought out
Oh, that's amazing. Thank you
I
so
bought out
much.
we bought out the whole theater
Mhm.
and for New Braunfels, Texas.
Oh, that's awesome.
And I think, by the way, what's crazy about my podcast is we look at, I had a big major podcast company partner come in and they wanted to analyze our numbers. And they said, your shows are way too long. You're not Joe Rogan. It's got to be 60 minutes or 30 minutes and same time every week. I'm like, you don't know my schedule. That I won't have a podcast. But then they did an analysis. 85% of the audience listens to the end of the show. But this is for those who aren't. This is for you who leave early. How people can how they can buy a ticket or bring your film to their theater. How can they do that? And we'll say it in the beginning and we'll have it in the show notes too. But yeah, how do you how do we bring this movie, Triumph of the Heart, to our community?
So there's two things right now. So we just finished our big like crowdfunding push where
Okay.
people could turn online like a page for their basically local zip code, and they could raise money, gather people together, and then pick a theater that they wanted to go and have a screening at. That we can't do anymore because we don't have enough time to book them all for opening weekend. Praise be to the Lord. We ended up with double the amount that we thought we were going to get.
So
And
how many
now we're
screens do
like,
you have?
huh?
How many screens?
So now we're at 450 that came
That's
through this
awesome.
buyout. Yeah, we did about $810,000 of buyouts, and yeah, basically, ultimately, that's what they are. So they're all buyouts,
$1,000 in buyouts. I'm proud to
right?
say I'm 2,000 of that. Now
Yeah.
that's amazing, brother. Just to put it in perspective, when our film Bella came out and we had won the Toronto International Film Festival, we spent millions and millions of dollars of print and advertising, and we never got past 600 theaters.
Yeah, that's amazing.
So you guys this is tremendous.
I mean, you guys were the template. Like, you guys did this ground game kind of indie approach that you just
Yeah.
stayed in theaters forever. It was like this wrestling match for you to just like get people into theaters and keep them there. I think you had a run for like, what was it, like 2.5 months, 3 months or something?
We made a big mistake. Yeah, we had a great run, and then we ran into Christmas. Like, we didn't understand. We just thought if we keep having the highest per screen average in America, we'll keep adding theaters.
Mm-hmm.
You learn a lot. It's a tough business, and it's tougher and tougher. It's in a strange place where there's more and more opportunities, but it's more and more confusing.
Right.
There it was
Yeah.
pretty. Then it was pretty. There was a playbook. We just thought we knew it, but we didn't know all the chapters. And so we were just, yeah, we were like selling out like on 42nd Street and, in New York and the big AMCs and Regals. And we're like, this is amazing. We're going to go on forever. We raised a lot of money for P&A and spent it in like primetime sitcoms, things like this. And then what we didn't understand was that the studios have the space when you get into the holiday season. So when you get to
Yeah.
Thanksgiving and Christmas.
Yeah.
So we ran into Thanksgiving. We kind of survived Thanksgiving and we came out on the other end intact. But by the time we hit Christmas, we were just mowed down. And
Yeah. Right.
you live and you learn. And it's I never went to film school, but to me, Bella was several years,
Yeah.
from the project. And that was where I learned the film industry. And now, as you're learning, nobody knows anything because consumer habits are changing every day. How you reach the consumer is changing every day.
Mm-hmm.
And so not every day, but I will tell you from project to project, it's changed.
Right. And it really is. It's
Yeah.
so hard to keep up with. I mean, what we did, we literally invented this. Like, we made our own distribution, like hard-coded crowdfunding site or software that we use to do this. And we're like,
Best sales team I've ever seen in film.
oh, wow.
No, they're responsive. I've never seen this yet. In fact, you guys are doing it. So I know the guys at Angel, and all you guys, you need to know these guys because I've never I've never been involved in a crowdfunding program where the team has been I don't know who they are,
Yeah.
but I've never seen it where they are this responsive to requests for theaters.
Yeah.
So I'm really impressed.
Yeah, I mean, we have a team of 5 like full-time basically salespeople who are taking, very small, like it's not a lot. Like they basically are, some of them are investors in the movie that just want to be on the phone and like sell it. Like they could be doing anything they wanted.
That was Sean Wolfington and Bella. This guy was
Yeah.
like the investor, and he was I
Yeah.
thought he was Eduardo's assistant when I met him. So humble, I really did.
That's
And
amazing.
he's
Yeah.
like, then you find out who he is, and you're like, this guy is, the machine.
Right.
And so it's
Yeah.
great that you have investors that are.
Yeah, I mean, small investors. These aren't like super wealthy people. They're people who put in like 10,000, 15,000. Like we don't have anybody that's like super up there, but they're all like, I think everybody that's involved in it just is so all in. It's like completely mind blowing. It's so hard to like describe it. And actually, it's probably very similar to what you guys had, because you had missionaries and like sort of interns and stuff that were doing a lot of this like screening. And I actually I'm sitting right here. I don't know. Do you know Elena and David Coletti?
Do I know them?
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
married because of me.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm
You
in
know
their
that?
house
Well,
right now.
are they there?
I had no idea.
Are they there?
They're downstairs. Yeah. I'm
Do you
in the
know
upstairs.
how I tricked them to marry each other?
No, they didn't share that with
Are
me.
you serious?
Yeah.
Okay, listen, this is true. I'm saying this for the world. So, okay, David is hot. Like he's a good-looking dude.
Yeah,
Man.
he is. And he
And
dresses
Elena's
like he's hot
beautiful,
too.
like movie star.
Yeah.
And I
yeah.
looked at them and I said to David, this intern of ours, she really thinks you're cute. And I said the same thing to Elena Coletti. And then that way I was trying to like conspire to get them to like each other.
That's amazing.
Never worked. And one day I'm doing some movie marketing thing and they're there helping me in DC or something, I think. And they call me in and they're like, they're together and they're like, surprise. And I don't know what proceeded after my little conspiracy, but yeah, I'm very proud of that couple.
That's
And
an amazing.
I adore them. I really adore them.
It's an amazing feather in the
You're
hat.
in their house right now?
So yeah, their son is a double in our movie actually. So
What?
yeah, we shot all of it in Poland, but then we had to do some pickups in the U.S. and we needed somebody that looked like the son of the Nazi commandant.
Text him to come up and tell the world how he's got a beautiful wife because of me.
Okay, I don't know if he's actually here right now,
You
but I
home?
will, because he's got a day job and all that.
Is she home? Have her come out.
Okay, yeah, I'll tell her.
I tell her Jason wants you on the air. So
Jason Jones wants you on the air.
firm his deceptive tactics in life. So by the way, so that's what a beautiful small world. Well, and Elaine was such a part of our victory in Toronto. She could tell you we did stories because she looks like that famous actress. Who does she look like?
I don't know.
She can tell you. And we had her put on big glasses and we went into fancy hotels to slide, like the hotels where all the big stars were at. I would be her bodyguard and Elaine would be like the movie star. And we would get dropped off in a sedan. We would go in, then we would have a backpack and we would go to the top floor and we would slide Bella promotional material under every door.
That's amazing. I just love the guerrilla marketing, man. It's so awesome. Yeah. Like I love it. That kind of stuff is like what I live for, and our whole sales team is just like, that's the hustle they've got. It's amazing to watch.
You have to hustle.
Right.
I mean, look,
yeah.
this is Maximilian Kolbe. Look, one of the things I learned from is the life of an apostle, living the apostolic life through Maximilian Kolbe, is it's a life of hustle. This man was designing rockets and satellites and was obsessed with radio and was the first Christian radio broadcaster, I think, in history.
Right.
Always wanted the latest technology, was like really obsessed with technology and using it to share the gospel and printing more effectively, more efficiently, more cost effective. He lost a lung in India, was a missionary in China, died in Auschwitz. This man lived a very active life. And because our work deserves it. I always tell my team, we should take saving lives at the VPP as serious as McDonald's takes selling hamburgers and Ford takes selling cars. And then at first you hear that, it strikes you as sacrilegious to compare saving human beings to hamburgers and cars. But, again, working around the Wolfington family, they're an automobile family, they taught me about the seriousness of sales and marketing and systems and processes and procedures and discipline and hard work. And, when you think how serious, how Ford analyzes everything from sourcing materials to manufacturing to distribution to how to sell you a car when you walk through their door, they take this all ruthlessly serious, and they have institutional memory now going back a century. And so when you're making this beautiful work of art on St. Maximilian Kolbe, and you are an artist, but you really have to hustle to succeed in a very competitive. I mean, our attention is being, they're trying to reach us now everywhere.
Yeah.
Um, and you're competing not only with other. Used to be you were competing with the other films on the on the what do we call that now? I forget what we call it. When you walk to the theater, the marquee. You
Marquee,
walk,
yeah, yeah.
but the marquee, and it was like 3 movies. That's who your competition was. Now your competition is Amazon, Netflix, Hulu, Instagram, TikTok, WhatsApp. I mean, you're competing for people's attention with everything, and to succeed, you have to work hard.
Yeah, I think, yeah, Maximilian, one of the stories that I was really moving to me about Maximilian Kolbe that I began to find to it was very relevant to me was that he really saw himself as a warrior. You know, he had this fork in the road where his father went to the front with the Russians during his childhood. They were sort of occupied by Russia. There's sort of a fight for their freedom. I think that they only had maybe like a 10-year window before they were then again invaded by Russia and Germany. But when his father died in the war, his brother and he wanted to leave seminary and go to war. And his brother did, and he decided to stay because of his mother's sort of intercession and presence. But he didn't end up changing his sort of militaristic sort of perspective. He really thought that he was going to war for the sake of the faith, and his bullets were the miraculous medals and like rosary beads. And I think in many ways, I really didn't align with that at all as a young man. I didn't like that more like militaristic language. I was much more kind of I don't know. I wanted to be Franciscan and love the animals and all that. But I in making this film.
So you find out that St. Francis was an MMA fighter.
Wait,
Did you know
what?
that?
I
Yes,
thought that he was a warrior before he got sick and then became a Franciscan.
yeah, but in between that, before then, he literally like would compete in like fighting matches, and yeah, he was a wild man.
Well, that's amazing. I want to tell that
Yeah,
story. We should talk
James
about that one.
Mumford, the brother
Mhm,
of one of the guys from Mumford and Sons, had a beautiful script on St.
mhm.
Francis, and it opens up on him doing this like one-on-one combat. It was such a powerful script. Anyway,
Oh,
I apologize.
what? Did it get
Yeah,
made?
never got made. No,
Oh my gosh. Well,
go
yeah, you
reach
should
out
put
to
me in
him,
touch
and
with him.
I
Maybe we
wish it
could
would
work on
have
that
got made.
one.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think part of what I was learning was just that I had a conversation with another director that was like incredibly poignant, and he said that to be a director, you have to be a poet and a soldier because the logistics that are involved with making a movie, and this probably was very true of like the radio or any mass media. It's this project of scale where you have to be able to be kind of a general and master the logistics, the supply chain, the like strategy. It's incredibly, incredibly tense, like high adrenaline kind of work. And so Colby himself was known for pushing his soldiers, if you will, to the very brink of death. You know, when they were in Japan, they went there with very little money, with the plan to start a very expensive mass media sort of newspaper in the place that was the hardest for the Christian faith to seed. You know, the ground that was the hardest to seed. Japan has been one of the toughest places to evangelize for the faith. So he picks that, the hardest place to go, hardest language. Imagine trying to translate Polish to Japanese in the 20th century. Like, how many people in the world can you reach out to that can be your translator? And how do you find them? Like, I can't even imagine the logistical complexity that was involved in that. And, they go there, they start this paper, they're successful in getting it up and running in under a year. And all of them almost die because Kolbe is spending all of their money on the machines, on the paper. They will not miss a week. It's going to happen. Um, and he's knocking on death's door because he's got tuberculosis. He's convalescing for a month. And they ended up, I think, I can't remember how long it was, but they ended up demoting him because even though he founded the mission, he was driving people to like almost like a point of danger. And he had to learn during that moment that the people were actually more important than the machines. They had this joke that was like, Kolbe loves the machines more than he loves the people. And I think as a founder, anybody that's trying to do something like this, I totally relate to being in that position where I'm almost like offering my team on the pyre on the altar, the sacrificial altar of this like mission. And to sort of have to turn around and be like, actually, you guys, how I live with you, how I love you, our relationships, our brotherhood and sisterhood, that is the most important thing. If I get that wrong, then and get the rest right, then we're still a
Because then
failure.
Maximilian Kolbe was pushing himself,
Hmm.
and he saw these men as his equals, even though he was their superior.
Yeah.
He didn't see it because I love that you're humanizing the saint, and you could see the same thing in the life of Saint Damien, or the criticisms of Mother Teresa that have come from others that were in her order or volunteered with her. She was a hard taskmaster,
Right. Yeah.
and so these are human beings, and they have to learn
Right.
as well. They're learning and growing in the work of their apostolate.
I think, yeah, it's what we kind of constantly learn is that the way God is working out our salvation is through the work that we're doing in our relationships with the people around us. And what I thought was so amazing was that at the end of his life, Kolbe had to see all of his life's work burn, just completely evaporate. And the only thing that he had left was his own ability to sacrifice himself for one other person and to pastor 9 other people in a dark place. And he had no idea that eventually the Allies would win the war, that, the German sort of Reich would be destroyed. No clue. When he was dying, they were unstoppable, completely unstoppable. They were literally on meth. It was like, all of
Right.
these.
You're right. It was like when St. Peter was hanging upside down.
Right.
And Rome seemed absolutely triumphant, and Maximilian Kolbe was in the same place. And that powerful movie by Terrence Malick, The Hidden Life, on Franz Jägerstätter. I don't know if you had a chance to see that film.
Of course, it was like a big reference for us visually. So,
Really?
but yeah.
Terrence
Yeah.
Malick, obviously, we love Terrence Malick. So, but the whole idea that Franz Jägerstätter didn't think he was going to be a saint. He was just a humble guy, and the SS officer was like, no one's going to know you did this. What
Right.
does it matter? And I never thought about it in the context of, say, Maximilian Kolbe. Of course, Poland was being smashed. This was prior to Pearl Harbor. The United
Right.
States wasn't even in the war.
Right.
And so, yeah, they seemed absolutely unstoppable. So Maximilian Kolbe would have had no worldly hope of being honored or vindicated or success. Everything he built failed.
Yeah. And so this whole kind of pushing that he's doing, like with his brothers, ultimately, that's not the thing that God used in the biggest way to make an impact. It was his love, for a few other people.
The night, it's hard to
Yeah.
find. I have the complete writings of Maximilian Kolbe.
Yeah.
It only printed 700 copies in English.
I couldn't even find that. I tried when I was doing
You
my.
should have called me. I would have lent them to you. I have
Well,
them. They're
I
here.
didn't know that you had it.
Yeah, in fact, I just had my assistant take half the book and put it into ChatGPT to synthesize it for some columns I'm writing on some points.
Wow.
But I had her do that while I was traveling in Asia, of all things. Yeah,
That's
I'll
quite a
send it to you if
project
you
right
want. Now, let me try to source it and give it to you as a gift.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
would
love
that.
it. It's just it's his letters and his writings. It comes in 2 sets. You can get it, I think, on Kindle
Mm.
for not too much. But yeah, I would love to send that to you.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, I mean, I think that it's kind of a testament to the fact that like all worldly power is in some way like ephemeral compared to what God can do a yes, like a yes to love. And I think there's a lot of that kind of buried in the story of this movie too. Probably the same thing with Bella and everything. Like it's required us to work beyond our human resources and power. If you had told me like, hey, you're going to be pulling all-nighters every week for the rest of the next 3 years, I would have been like, there's no way I could do that. But that only gets you so far, like that can rally a lot of stuff and you can do a lot with it. But um, this movie still should not have been as good as it is given that, like it's God kind of coming down on the sacrifice and sort of giving it something extra. I think particularly because of the way that for us that we're loving each other as a team behind the scenes and living out I guess the sort of authenticity of it, that somehow kind of trickles down and kind of is imbibed by the people who are watching the trailer or deciding to come. And it's created quite like a sold out fan base, so
Well,
it's kind
that's
of
gonna be
amazing.
the key to success because when we go see it, we're gonna talk about it and people will be able to see. And like, here's a compliment I can tell you just from the trailer. I remember watching it thinking, man, if I would have seen this trailer 15 years ago, I'd have been so angry. I would have been so envious. I would have been like, oh,
That's the greatest compliment that I could receive,
yeah, I'd have been like, oh, ah, why
Son of
did
a
they
gun,
have,
they did it.
why, yeah, they did it. I should have done it. Why didn't they ask me to be a producer? And I was like, hey, I was like analyzing myself. Hey, I don't feel envy at all. Good
That's
on me.
amazing. Yeah, good job.
Good for me. But it's I'm a human. Oh, so no, it's tremendous. Now you said that who are some of your inspirations? You said Terrence Malick.
Yeah, Terrence Malick and I mean, come on, like I'm in the I guess cohort of people who saw The Passion of Christ in high school. Who Braveheart was like one of my favorites. So like Mel Gibson is absolutely a creative hero of mine, and I really like the pairing of those two sentiments because of course, Terrence Malick is this very esoteric, poetic director that,
Transcendent.
yeah, he makes these like ballets. It's like you don't go to see a Terrence Malick film like you go to the movies. You go to it like preparing for a symphony. And you just have to know that because it's not going to be like this entertaining thing. You have to be like ready for some high art. Whereas Gibson, like everything that he makes is made, it's got that same feeling. It's got some of that artistic sort of um I don't know, surrealism to it, mysticism to it, but then at the same time, it's like deeply entertaining, universal. Anybody can go and see it and really get moved by it. So I really wanted to kind of combine that a little bit and make some more poetic stuff, but also have structure and a discipline to it that felt universal.
You know what I like about that answer? I always said that Terrence Malick represents transcendence and
Hmm.
and Mel Gibson's eminence.
Hmm. Okay.
Eminence. So, the tree of life, and this is from Steve McAvity said this when we were in a meeting trying to figure out how to help the tree of life succeed at the box office because it's a prayer. It's the most beautiful prayer ever said. It's unbelievable. And Steve McAvity said that the tree of life is to the first person of the Trinity as the passion of the Christ is to the second,
Wow. That's amazing. Yeah.
right?
That's so true.
And so what you're doing is you said you want to bring in both, which makes sense because Maximilian Kolbe brings in the third person of the Trinity because his mystical writings on the connection between the Blessed Virgin Mary and the Holy Spirit are very mysterious and very beautiful. And his writings on the Blessed Mother and the Holy Spirit. And what does that mean? Who am I? The Immaculate Conception. Who
Hmm.
am I? Have you ever seen that beautiful one man play?
Yeah. Yeah.
Breathtaking. Who is that again?
Leonardo DiFlippis. That's at that.
That's the guy. Did that have an influence on you as well?
Yeah, I met him actually when I was doing the dog and pony show, kind of I was raising money like 10 grand, 5 grand at a time. And somebody was like, hey, there's this guy who did a Maximilian Kolbe movie and show. He's actually doing it at this retreat center in in Pennsylvania. So I flew out to that and met him there, and we had an evening together where we just like shared very deeply and stayed on the phone. As I was working on the script, I gave it to him, and he gave some feedback on it. So he's been kind of a mentor and a support. And of course, he's like one of the first people to start this whole like renaissance of Catholic storytelling and filmmaking. So we're all sort of standing on the shoulders of giants, and he's probably
Yeah,
one of
he's
those
the
that we're
giant,
standing on.
and he
Yeah.
is a real pioneer and a real artist. He's the real creative, the real deal, and I'll tell you, to this day, whenever I hear the name Raymond,
Yeah.
I hear it in the voice of Saint Maximilian Kolbe's mother,
Yeah.
"Raymond!" from that play.
Yeah. 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 For sure.
What will become of you, Raymond?
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yeah. It's amazing.
I bounced around a lot just because, by the way, a lot of our audience has been with me since Bella.
Wow. I didn't
So
know
a
that.
lot of these folks are like, yeah, the movement folks, or they love our movies, and a lot come in through VPP and other places. But um, what is going to be? So we kind of bounced around, talked a lot of industry stuff, and I feel a little guilty. We could have talked more on St. Maximilian Kolbe, but what is there one thing that was the most startling thing you've learned about St. Maximilian Kolbe while making this film?
Um, Yeah, I mean, the startling thing, the first fact was that he didn't die alone, or that he was joined by four other people in the execution moment at the end, which to me meant that a miracle of hope had happened inside of that cell for him to be able to bring those other people out of this, like the culture of death, right? Like that is where it came from, was 20th century atheistic totalitarianism that said life is not worth living unless you have power, right? And Maximilian Kolbe was able to somehow make these people who were powerless, ultimately vulnerable in the deepest pit of suffering that you could imagine. He gave them the will to live and to use their voices to praise God from inside of that space. It's like Daniel in the lion's den in a lot of ways. Like,
Because
um,
normally, from the reports, is they would moan and cry and scream and beg for help.
I mean, this
But
place.
Maximilian Kolbe brought this transformation in this little cell.
Yeah, I mean, as I learned more about just where this was and how dark it was, it made the contrast of Colby's sacrifice and his light so much more powerful. The fact that this cell was just at the foot of the death wall where people were being shot um, by the thousands every day. Colby is in this cell praising God while listening to his fellow countrymen being executed in sort of a ritual all day, every day. This is also the place, just two cells over, is where, Dr. Mengele, the sort of Nazi doctor, was conducting all of these experiments. So at the time, they were experimenting with Cyclone B gas for the first time. They threw a bunch of people. I think it was like 200 people into one of these cells in the basement, and they gassed them. And it took them, because they got the ratios wrong, it took them, I think, 3 days to fully die. And so that is the soundscape that you're hearing, is the death and torture and execution in the most demoralizing, terrible ways, um, all around you. And when Maximilian Kolbe was in this cell, one of the characters in the movie is this sort of like uh, just salt of the earth man who is a janitor, that is hired to be sort of a janitor to take the bodies out of the cell. And he's the eyewitness. He's a historical character. Everything that happens with him on screen is a historical, eyewitness fact or testimony. He said that it sounded like a cathedral while Colby was in the cell. That it became like the soundscape of a church, because not only was he singing, but the other prisoners in his cell began to sing, and then the other cells around him, those who were being tortured, began to pick up the song. And so all of a sudden, this puts you into this image of why the Nazis would execute him. Like, it's this game of chicken, right, between him and the Nazi commandant, who is trying to destroy the soul and the spirit of all of these people, and who puts him down and wants to see him in some ways be like, uh, to lose his soul. Like, that's, I think that the reason why he let Maximilian Kolbe step forward was because he could use it as as sort of like this, if he could break this priest, it would be a bigger witness to their power. And so I think that he was playing chicken in a way with Colby. Like, why did he let him stay alive for 14 days while this was happening? I think he wanted to win.
And the witness is that Maximilian Kolbe was not strong enough to do that. Like,
Yeah,
Maximilian Kolbe could not, Raymond Kolbe could not weather that torture. He could not suffer the way he suffered. He could not hear those screams. But for the grace of God, it was the witness of our Creator there with him in the cell, and that he passed on the eve of the Assumption too, to
it's
me
amazing.
is amazing, yeah.
It's so beautiful, and yeah, that he was sort of assumed into heaven through the like the chimney at on the eve of the feast that he was of the Assumption of Mary. And I mean, the ashes of this camp would be visible and smellable in Krakow, where John Paul II was actually working and studying and developing his kind of vision of the world. And so there's this amazing kind of connectivity between Colby's sacrifice, the story of John Paul II, and the ultimate like destruction and freeing of Poland from communism. So it's like this amazing like world of the value of the human person, the dignity of the human person, the hope, the faith of God being like passed down almost prophetically through his witness to John Paul II, that then begins to kind of become the underlying substrata for a revolution of faith for the whole world. It's just an amazing story, and I think,
Brings
um,
down totalitarianism eventually in Eastern Europe, and
right,
then you have this young man, Kirawatiwa, later St.
mhm,
John Paul, who's putting on clandestine plays with his friends to revive and celebrate Christendom and Polish culture. And then he later on, as Pope, writes a letter to young artists. You're a young artist. You were, if not directly inspired by his writings on the arts, you were inspired by those who were courageous because he was.
yeah,
And you see what the mystical body of Christ is.
yeah, that's
And what a
all
blessing and a
connected.
privilege to be members, all of us, as baptized Christians and Catholics, that we are members of this mystical body of Christ, standing with the vulnerable, standing with the scapegoat. And well, I can't thank you enough. I'm going to have you back on and do another show when we're in our new office with our new studio,
I
and
would
we're
love that.
launching this video podcast. You know, since the fall of Afghanistan several years ago, my podcast has been pretty sporadic. It was pretty big and had a big audience, and then still has a surprise. We just did an episode a couple days ago, and I was shocked when I looked at the numbers on iTunes. But we're really excited about launching the new show. So we're going to have you back on maybe when we find out, after the release, what the next steps are
Yeah,
and how we can help this film. And after I see it, and then we can talk about, say, Maximilian Kolbe, because I know a lot about, I mean, I've read
mhm,
everything he has ever written that has extant and been translated. I've read several times. And I adore him.
mm.
And I know as so many people do. And so we're so grateful to you that you gave us several years of your life while not using being sick as an excuse. And I want to hear, I have to imagine your faith did some ups and downs in the making of the film, and your self confidence has some ups and downs because,
Yeah.
you know, I know this is what happens to me in every project, but that's why I have a saying that gives me comfort, which is I'm a loser with high self esteem.
Yeah,
No success will make me stop feeling like a loser, and no failure will undermine my confidence.
yeah,
You know,
wow,
making films and doing the work that VPP does, it's always quite humbling.
mhm,
And I don't know if it's original to him, but you know, one of my favorite directors is Alejandro Monteverdi. I think he's
he's
just so,
amazing.
yeah, he's amazing. And Bellas, you know, and of course, in Little Boy, da da da. But he has said to me on some film projects we were working on, and they would die. You feel like they're dead. They're just dead. And Alejandro would say, "Well, every film dies three deaths." So I'm sure you know this is something we can talk about. I'm sure your film died. Well, let's end on this. I mean, how many times did you think this project was dead?
Yeah, I it's it's interesting because I never I never believed it was dead, but I never thought that it would,
And
well, no, in some ways it was like I knew that I would never let it go. Like I would never let it like go until I died. I had to make it. But
Mhm.
um there were sort of like, yeah, there was one moment um when we were in Poland. Uh, this is worth the extra couple minutes for the story. But went through this whole process of working with like casting the movie was so hard because I had to find people who would shave their heads. As actors, it's very hard to do because you have to giving up your look. um, they had to be willing to do it for basically $150 a day, which is like, nothing. That's at least 2 days of work, really, because we're doing rehearsals for each one. And then we had to have them, they had to starve and lose 20 pounds to do it. So, plus all of the very intense, like heart wrenching, gut wrenching performances that we had to get to. Um, and so I cast every role maybe 3 times, and then people would, like, realize just how hard it was gonna be, and then they would quit, um, or, bow out or whatever. And one of the things that was really a big sticking point for us was you have in the contract, in the audition, whatever, you have to accept and say you're willing to shave your head and shave your beard because we're not going to let nobody is going to get through this and be like, "No, I'm the precious one that doesn't have to do that." Like, we'll do some sort of like fake, wig or whatever every day from like, it's like, no, we're not doing that. Like everybody has to shave their heads. So this one guy who plays one of the characters um comes and sits down for like the first day of shooting, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I'm sorry, like I actually can't shave my beard because I've got this other production that I'm running to." Um and we're about to shoot, we were going to shoot a few days, and then we're going to do all of our big Auschwitz exterior stuff. So we had, basically worked with the city to sort of close off a whole street. Like this apartment complex was going to be our set, and we had to move everybody's cars. We were flying people in from everywhere. We had these German vehicles. We have the German shepherds that we're renting, the reenactors, like a whole constellation of things that are all planned to happen on Friday. And he can't shave his beard. And I'm like literally on the phone with his German production that he's going to go back to do, to be like, "Hey guys, I will pay you $20,000 if I can just like get I'm going to work with a beard specialist that's going to 3D map his face and glue on every freaking hair exactly where it was so that it's like perfect."
Whoa.
I'm like trying to work this out. I've got like the hair specialist or beard specialist from the Hunger Games on it. Ultimately, they say no. So we're in this moment now where we're like, either we let this guy, because it's continuity outside of the cell into the cell, it's all the same day. So if we throw him in the cell with a beard, he's got to have it for the whole time. And somehow we're going to have to justify that to like everybody in the movie, which is like, that will not play. Like, just nobody will believe it. Nobody will believe it. It's just a complete like non-starter. So we literally had to reschedule the entire shoot. Um, and not just the whole schedule, but like that it cost us. I didn't even think it would be possible. I just was like, logistically speaking, all of the work that went into doing this while we're also having to plan the rest of the production, because we're just like one day at a time, basically. We had to rework the entire schedule and do it. And we actually were able to pull it off. We got everybody together. We had to hire a completely new art direction team, like a new stunt team. We basically had to like completely recrew for this one day or 2 days. So that was a
Cost
complete,
you money.
yeah,
In the film business, we call that snafu.
yeah,
Situation normal, all fouled up.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, but this is what happens.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
you
So
can,
that was one moment that was like the dark night of the soul for sure.
oh my gosh, I'm getting butterflies and sick to my stomach just listening to you.
Yeah,
You share this. Well, and that's why each and every one of us, especially those of us who love St. Maximilian Kolbe, and all of us, anyone who knows St. Maximilian Kolbe will love St. Maximilian Kolbe. The least we can do is get our parish and our community to fill a theater and to go out and see this film. Now, I want you to give us one last time. What can we do at this point?
yeah.
Because you said you're sold out. Is
We're
have we
not
missed
sold
the
on
boat? Good
full
for you.
buyouts, like how you bought out. If one
Yeah,
person wants to just buy all the tickets for
yeah.
something, we can still receive those. It's the whole crowdfunding campaign process that we had to sort of stop those because they take a little bit more logistically to pull off. So we needed more lead time for them. But if you want to just buy a theater, you can do that. So anybody that's listening that wants to buy out theaters, they can go to triumphoftheheart.com, and on the menu, you'll see like buy out a screen. You can just click there, and it's actually a very easy, convenient transaction that we've kind of set up for it. And if that is not something you can do because you don't have the means to put, $2,000 or $1,500 down, you can just call your theater and ask them to carry the movie. You think that these sorts of things don't matter, but they actually really do. Theaters actually are really aware of the demand for a movie, and people calling makes an impact. So go ahead and do that, and just watch for tickets to go on sale. There are the actual theatrical release, normal tickets from your normal AMC theater or Fandango or Atom tickets. Those will be beginning to go up this week. So you can just find a screening near you if one comes online, and buy a ticket, or you can call the theater and just tell them, hey, you should make sure that you have this movie on your screens.
Well, Anthony, I can't thank you enough. I'm gonna give you guys out there a little hint. Like, I'm buying out a theater, but it's not because I'm magnanimous. I have found that when I invite people to a free showing of a film like this, we are going to invite them in, but at the end, I'm going to present the work of VPP, and we usually raise about 10,000 a screen. So we'll probably raise $8,000 off of our event that we do around your film, Anthony. And if you're out there, you want to support your local crisis pregnancy center, or your Holy Name Society, or you have a local charity that you're on the board of directors of, or you're an executive director of, I think this film would be a great way just to invite your supporters, invite them in there for free, then just have little envelopes or little QR codes that you pass out at the end and say, this was a gift from our organization to you because it shares the message of our work to promote a culture of life. And if you want to support our work, here's a great way to do it. And so not only can you support this wonderful film, you can support a local pregnancy center or Catholic apostolate in your community. Anthony, again, I know you probably got a lot of shows. Thank you for this film. Thank you for your corresponding your life to the grace God gave you, even when you had your little struggle with this problem of pain and you drifted. And I'm so grateful our Lord brought you back. Thank you for, even while you were going through that, as a young struggling filmmaker, you were out there trying to knit together the community of Christian and Catholic filmmakers to work together, you and your brother. So I just want to thank you both for that. And take a beer out of the Coletti's refrigerator for me.
Okay, will do. Sorry that she didn't come up. I'm sure she's busy.
Ah, tell her. Oh, I
I'll
can't.
tell her you say
I know
hi.
I see her twice a year,
Yeah.
because I come up to Dallas for some fundraiser or another kind of, I don't know if Dave still works for 7-Eleven, but he did.
Yeah.
And
Hmm.
there was an Afghan gentleman that our organization rescued who, for the past 2 years, I think has had he's been the owner operator of the #1 7-Eleven in America,
Wow. That's
Prince
amazing.
Wafa. So,
Yeah.
and Dave helped us get this gentleman to speak on stage at Las Vegas to the 7-Eleven convention, I believe last year, or the year before.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
I love the Coletti family. I'm so grateful that you're staying there with them. And Anthony, you can jump off, or Mrs. Producer, we're new at this. I don't know what you want to do, but Anthony, thank you so much. I'm gonna land this plane, and I look forward to talking to you after your big successful open.
Hey, thank you so much, Jason. It was such an honor to be on the show with you.
God bless you, brother.
God bless you. Yeah.
All right, guys. So now listen to this. You've got to go to the website, and I'm going to put the website in the show notes. And I really want to encourage you to bring this film to your local theaters. When I was a young atheist, it was studying the life of St. Maximilian Kolbe that finally melted away my prejudice and made me look at the church with open eyes, with honest eyes. I remember studying the life of St. Maximilian Kolbe. I'd been in the pro-life movement a long time. I'd been doing human rights work a long time as an atheist, but I was studying theism. I was wrestling with prejudice that I had against Christianity, specifically Catholicism. But it was St. Maximilian Kolbe's life of love, courage, and sacrifice that I really said to myself, I don't have intellectual arguments with the Catholic Church. I'm a bigot. And let me look at the church. Let me set my bigotry aside and let me look at the Catholic Church with open eyes, honest eyes. And so I really believe this film is going to be a powerful tool that will inspire Catholics to live courageous apostolic lives, but it will also help others really take a new look at the Catholic Church. And in these tough and challenging times, I am always so grateful to God that I am a Catholic. It is hard. It is hard for me as a well-formed Catholic. And I know that grace builds upon our nature, but God's time is in our time. I say, God, can we work a little faster on my nature? And I'm struggling still. I'm despondent sometimes. I have acedia sometimes. I'm confused sometimes. And then I'm always thinking, how do people survive outside of the church? And it really, and it makes me tremble for them. And it makes me grateful that I'm in the church. And so we want everyone to be inside the church. And this film is the greatest tool we're going to get this year. There's no better instrument that we're going to have this year than this beautiful movie. So let's seize this opportunity. And guys, this episode, as always, is being brought to you by the Vulnerable People Project, inspired by the life of St. Maximilian Kolbe, inspired by the life of St. Damien and St. Mother Marianne Cope. And we at VPP stand with the most vulnerable people in the world at the most challenging places and times. Go to vulnerablepeopleproject.com, become a part of our team. Just this week, and you can see it on our website. This week, we finally got some Afghan girls that were living in our safe houses for 3 years off to college in a third country. Just this week. Rita, come on in here. Help me know. Just this week. What did we do this week, Rita? We got young Afghan students to college, yes, safely. What else? We delivered baby formula in Gaza. We did slushies. We had a kids' day with music and clowns. And we brought inflatable swimming pools into Gaza and threw a pool party for young children in Gaza. What else? A lot more. Yeah, too much more. Yeah. Oh, this young woman, come in here. She went to Nebraska, and a young Yazidi survivor of ISIS was living in a house with no bed, no couch, no shower curtain, nothing. And now she has a beautifully furnished house with everything a young woman deserves, everything you would want your daughter to have. This young Yazidi survivor, and she bought me this cup. This is the mug. Yeah, she got me this as a thank you. So when you become a donor at the Vulnerable People Project, you are living in solidarity with the most vulnerable people in the world. In fact, I have imposter syndrome all of the time because people thank me for what we do, and I do nothing. It's their donors that do it. It's their donors that make all of this possible, and I'm grateful to you. All right, guys? So until next time we're going to be coming from our studio, and we're going to get professional, aren't we, Rita? Mm-hmm. Are we going to get professional?
Yeah.
I mean, we're going to be like the Joe Rogan show?
Yeah.
She doesn't sound very confident, but we're going to do our best. All right. Until next time, the Jason Jones Show.